Welcome to this new video on Forza Horizon 6, in which I will show you cars that have unique details or features. So, unique or almost unique, because if there are 2 or 3 cars in the game that have the same feature, I still consider it rare enough in Forza Horizon 6 that it deserves to be highlighted. You might already know some of the cars I'll show in this video, or you may be familiar with other models in the game that have unique features or details. If that's the case, feel free to put their name in the comments and a short description of what makes them unique. That will probably allow me to discover new cars in the game, and it might also let me make a second episode with the cars you recommend to me in the comments. Before all that, I want to remind you that if you want to enjoy all these little details and unique features in Forza Horizon 6, and you haven't bought your copy of Horizon 6 yet, it's much cheaper through my instant gaming link, which you'll find below this video in the comments with the tab. Many items like phone cards, Game Pass, PSN cards, and games are much cheaper on instant gaming than elsewhere. If you've already bought games or need subscriptions and want to save money while supporting my channel, check it out. The first 2 cool details are about the Porsche Taycan. First, it's one of the few electric cars in the game with 2 gears by default, while most have only 1. And on this car, what they've done is they've put in a speed limiter. On a traditional combustion engine car, well, you have to change gears when you reach a certain RPM. There's no secret to that. On this car, to know when you need to change gears, you just look at the little gauge at the bottom right of the screen. When I get to around 130 km/h, the game tells me that's it. It's time to shift into second gear. There aren't many other electric cars in the game that have this kind of feature. I think it's pretty cool. And another nice little detail about this Porsche Taycan is that it's taken from real life. When you activate reverse gear on this Porsche Taycan, there's a beep inside and outside that goes off. Yeah. It's just like on trucks. It's simply to let pedestrians or other nearby cars know that you're in reverse, which is especially important on electric cars that are completely or almost completely silent. There are also some cars in Forza Horizon 6 that benefit from advanced aerodynamics, meaning there are parts on the bodywork that move depending on whether you accelerate or brake, for example, simply to optimize your car's handling. In the case in question, for example, you'll find the Koenigsegg Agera RS, which has a movable rear wing that goes vertical when you brake. Not sure if it's clear on screen, but watch the rear wing. It lifts slightly when I brake. The goal, quite simply, is to move it to a vertical position to help the car slow down, since it creates extra air resistance and actually lets you brake a bit harder. In a similar style, but even more advanced and unique, there's the Zenvo TSR-S. This car is truly one of a kind and was recreated in Forza Horizon 6. We have a wing, indeed, that tilts forward. Now, this is really extremely visible. Just like on the Agera RS, when you brake, it tilts forward. But this car has another special feature. The wing also moves horizontally in corners, and it will also combine with acceleration and braking, meaning that if you turn and brake at the same time, you'll see the wing really go vertical and also rotate to one side. So it's pretty strange and, let's say, visually unsettling, but it's something that actually exists. And Zenvo put this in place simply to constantly optimize the car's aerodynamic downforce. There are also cars where this aerodynamic downforce management system is paired with the vehicle's electronic management and linked to a performance mode system, for example, the Mercedes-AMG One. For this car and some others in Forza Horizon 6, you can activate performance modes. Look at the bottom right of the screen, next to the speedometer, where it shows road or track, and you can assign a button to this system. So, in track mode, the base car has its rear wing raised. This simply allows the car to have better cornering grip. However, there's a downside to this. It will significantly limit the car's top speed. So now, let's try to hit a top speed. You'll see that once we get past, let's say, 330 km/h, the car will really start to struggle to accelerate, precisely because of this improved aerodynamic downforce. And overall, from 350 km/h onwards, it's almost stagnant. It's really very difficult to keep accelerating. But if I activate road mode, by clicking here on the joystick or the controller, it will retract the spoiler into the back of the vehicle. What this does is 2 things. So obviously, as you can imagine, it's going to reduce the car's aerodynamics. So actually, it's going to have a better top speed. On the other hand, it won't handle turns quite as well, obviously, since there's less, let's say, air pressing the car down onto the road. We'll keep accelerating harder for a bit longer, but you can also see the car doesn't handle as well in the turns. For exactly the same reasons. And it keeps accelerating a bit harder still, up to over 350 km/h, even though here, we're also not very far from its top speed. we're going to be able to reach almost 370 with this car in 6th gear, which is pretty cool. This performance mode system can also be found on other cars in the game, so sometimes it's going to be for pretty much the same thing. For example, on the McLaren P1, it's the same. You have a race mode where the spoiler will deploy for better handling, but with less top speed. And if you switch to sport mode, it's going to do the same thing as on the Mercedes-AMG 1. Except here, it's going to take a bit longer. It's true that this is a little annoying, but when you change the performance mode, the game doesn't pause but stops you from moving forward. Some cars have faster or slower spoiler deployment. For example, the P1's is quite slow, but indeed, with the P1 when you switch to sport mode, just like on the Mercedes-AMG 1, you're going to gain more top speed and more acceleration. On the other hand, you'll also end up with a car that's a bit harder to handle. I'll show you 2 more examples of how it works. It's going to be exactly the same for the Ford GT, except here it's much faster. You can switch from sport to track mode in about a second. Also, the spoiler still lifts in sport mode. That's the difference with track mode. In track mode, it's always raised to always have maximum aerodynamic downforce. Whereas in sport mode, on this car, if I'm not mistaken, after a certain speed, it's barely visible on the screen, but it does happen. The spoiler changes its angle just a little bit to improve the car's top speed in sport mode. That's actually pretty cool. And by the way, it's a really beautiful car, the Ford GT. It's exactly the same thing on the Gordon Murray T50, where clearly, they didn't bother to write race mode or performance mode. They literally wrote what the performance modes are going to do. So, high downforce, that's the race mode. So that's the mode, let's say, where the spoiler is deployed and you're going to have maximum grip. And then you have, indeed, the V-Max boost mode where, when you activate it, the car's flaps are folded down. That said, there is still one small difference with this car, which is that even in V-Max boost mode, when you brake with this car, the rear flaps will still deploy to act as an air brake. For example, on the Koenigsegg Agera RS or the Zenvo TSR-S shown earlier, I think that's pretty cool. It's a shame this performance mode system isn't more common on other cars. Honestly, there are many things you could do. Cars like the Porsche 918 Spyder can use some cool features. I showed you 2 on this car. You'll actually be able to have 4-wheel steering. You see, when you're stopped or at low speed, the rear wheels of the car turn slightly in the opposite direction to the front wheels, simply to improve its maneuverability at low speed. Simply so that it can make a U-turn more easily with a smaller turning radius, so it can turn more precisely and more sharply in corners. It will also feature a small spoiler that deploys at a certain speed and adjusts its angle based on speed and whether you're accelerating or braking. This car will have another special feature, which I'll demonstrate later on a different car to show it's available elsewhere. You can actually remove the roof of the Porsche Spyder to really turn it into a proper open-top Spyder. And that's available on several cars in the game. For example, you'll have the option to put the roof back on or take it off on the Bentley Continental GT. So that's a nice little difference that you'll also notice inside the car. With the roof closed, the sound is pretty muffled, but if I go through the same spot with the roof open, the sound is much less muffled. You can hear more of the tunnel's reverb, and you can hear more of the sounds around you. It's still disappointing in Forza Horizon 6 that using this feature to open or close a convertible roof doesn't show any roof folding animation. And that's a bit of a shame because, well, it's kind of one of the cool things about these cars. The animation, simply put, of the roof folding into the trunk. Now, I'm going to show you some small modeling details of the cars that are pretty cool. You might already know them if you've watched my other videos about the game, but I still wanted to show them again because, well, this video is really the perfect opportunity for it. There are some other little surprises later in the video, but for example, know that on the Scania R32, they've added some details that weren't there back in the days of Forza Horizon 5. For example, in its trunk, they've modeled a system that was optional at the time, which really existed on the Nissan R32. It's this beautiful Sony box, which is actually just a CD changer, I think, or maybe also a cassette changer. It's definitely a CD changer. In the Honda City, you also found a nod to the real Motocompo scooter in the trunk. This car was sold by Honda at the time with a real little motorcycle in the trunk. A Honda motorcycle, now it might not look like it, but it really is a motorcycle, it's just that it's a foldable motorcycle. So, when you take it out of the trunk, you can pull out the handlebars and everything that goes with it. This concept was developed by Honda because they simply wanted this car to take its owner to the outskirts of the city, then be parked, and then for the last few kilometers to the city center or to work, for example. You could use this little scooter, which is actually pretty cool. It's cool they're bringing it back, but it's useless since you can't ride the motorcycle. Plus, the game's performance modes do more than just change car aerodynamics. For example, On the Toyota GR on this car, in circuit mode, the torque distribution is different than in sport mode. In circuit mode, the car is a true four-wheel drive, meaning that 50% of the car's power goes to the front wheels and 50% to the rear wheels. However, if you stop and activate sport mode, the torque distribution will change slightly. Instead of being 50-50, it will be 30% of the power to the front and 70% to the rear, which will really change the feel of this car. It might make it feel a little heavier, but also a bit more fun to drive, because the car will have more of a rear-wheel drive sensation, which means you'll literally be able to drift quite easily with this car. And on the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, you'll find a similar system. Now, you should know that in reality, this car has a race mode and a sport mode, but it doesn't change the same things as in the game. The race mode and the sport mode, in reality, are simply different settings that are applied, for example, to the braking response, to the suspension response, things that the game doesn't really manage here in 4x4 mode and drift mode. So let's say it corresponds to race mode and let's say sport mode. Well, in 4x4 mode, you're in four-wheel drive. And in drift mode, it seems to me that the car switches to pure rear-wheel drive, meaning that in this case, all the torque really goes to the rear of the vehicle. You see, it's instant. The difference is really noticeable, because right away the car starts sliding instantly, and you can see that there's almost no more power going to the front wheels. If you know of any others, once again, put them in the comments. I have to admit I love presenting this kind of thing. It's cool to see that sometimes, on certain cars, the developers have really done a unique job to truly represent the car's real-life performance and its different features. If you have more, add them in the comments. As I said, this could lead to a second episode or help people discover cars with unique features. Don't hesitate to leave a like on this video. It's always appreciated. Let me remind you that you can also follow me on Twitch, where I regularly stream Forza Horizon 6 live. With you. We do multiplayer sessions with subscribers pretty often, twice a week at the moment. So, follow me, don't hesitate, come use Prime. Also, if you enjoy my videos and want to give my channel a little support, that's always appreciated too. And don't forget to take a look at Instant Gaming, a partner of the channel for many years, where you can confidently buy many games for less than elsewhere. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.